for an interest-free loan scheme for agribusiness in the rice value chain. We have done substantial investment in health infrastructure such as construction of the Port Loko Emergency Hospital, Julius Maadabu Pediatric Center of Excellence in Freetown, Waterloo, and Jojima Hospital in Kailan. We also rolled out school feeding programs covering 2,173 primary school and primary schools benefiting 5,553 to 37,000 children. And about 50% of total beneficiaries are girls. We provided emergency cash transfer to 43,000 households. The government also launched construction of 148.5 megawatt Western Area power generation following ratification of the power purchase agreement by this noble house. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, will also install 100 mini-grids in various chiefdoms across the country and establish the public health agency to coordinate prevention, detection, and rapid response to health threats. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, objectives of the 2025 budget. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the 2025 budget will seek to consolidate these gains and prioritize programs and policies that will foster inclusion, economic resilience, as well as improve the quality of lives of the people of Sierra Leone, hence the theme of the budget, improving the well-being and quality of life of the Sierra Leoneans. This will require the continued implementation of prudent fiscal and monetary policy to safeguard macroeconomic stability. It is also imperative to undertake sectoral and structural reforms to promote sustainable and inclusive growth and enhance the living standards of Sierra Leoneans. Speaker, honorable members, in this context, the objective of the 2025 budget are the following. 1, continue with efforts to further reduce inflation, stabilize the exchange rate to enhance household income, improve purchasing power and standard of living of our people, to prudently manage public finances to create fiscal space for investment in social and economic sectors, support the Feed Salon initiative to boost agricultural productivity for food security, sustain investment in human capital development to improve productivity and quality of workforce, continue to invest in infrastructure, technology, and innovation to boost productivity and growth potential of the economy, and deepen and broaden social protection programs to support the poor and vulnerable groups in our society, thereby ensuring their social and economic inclusion. We'll improve the business environment to promote growth and create job opportunities. We'll also support activities that promote a greener environment and address climate change and risk, and strengthen the public administration for effective and efficient public service delivery and good governance. So, Speaker, honorable members, before elaborating on the policies to achieve these objectives, please permit me to update this noble house on the macroeconomic and budgetary performance in this year 2024. Macroeconomic development in 2024. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the Statistics Sierra Leone, with support from the IMF, has rebased the country's gross domestic product, the GDP, with a base year revised from 2006 to 2018. The rebased GDP shows that our economy is bigger than we had previously estimated. The size of the economy, of the Sierra Leone economy, has increased from about $4 billion to $8 billion with per capita GDP increasing from $492 to $857. This is primarily driven by improved measurement of agricultural and service sector, as well as increased coverage of informal activities across all sectors. The rebased GDP shows changes in structure of the economy, with the share of agriculture declining to 34% from 60%. The service sector is now the largest sector, accounting for 43% of the GDP. The share of industry has also increased threefold from 7% to 21%. The macroeconomic implication of rebased GDP are that the debt to GDP ratio has dropped from 94% to 54% in 2022 and further down to 53.4% in 2023. Total domestic revenue to GDP ratio declined from 12% to 7.2% in 2022 It increased 7.9% of GDP in 2023. This lower ratio indicates that there is room to improve on domestic revenue mobilization. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the rebased GDP also shows that the economy is more resilient than we envisaged. The economy grew by 5.7% in 2023, after growing by 5.3% in 2022. The economy continues to demonstrate resilience in 2024 and is projected to grow by at least 4%. Increased agriculture and mining activities and recovery of the service sector, combined with declining inflation and stable exchange rates, are expected to boost growth in 2024. High-frequency economic indicators for the first half of the year, including improvements in composite index of economic activity, business sentiment, growth in credit to the private sector, and increased exports, indicate that the economy is on track to attain the projected growth rate for 2024. Inflationary pressure, which persisted in recent years, continued to ease in 2024, declining from the historic peak of 54.5% in October 2023 to 20.2% in September 2024. As tight monetary policy, macroeconomic policy take hold, global prices for food and energy softened, and exchange rates stabilized, combined with increased domestic food production. The trade balance improved in the first half of 2024, narrowing to 248 million from 286 million in the corresponding period in 2023 on the back of strong growth in iron ore exports. The total merchandise exports increased by 18% to 806 million in the first half of 2024 from 682 million recorded in the same period in 2023. Mineral exports, which account for 88.2% of total export receipts, increased by 17% to 711 million, with iron ore exports increasing by 21% to 490 million in the first half of the year. The value of total merchandise imports increased by 8.8% to 1.1 billion in the first half of 2024, from 968 million in the corresponding period 2023. Food imports declined by 12% to 197 million. Rice and petroleum import accounted for $72.9 million and $260 million respectively. Gross international reserves of the Bank of Sierra Leone declined to 2 months of import cover at the end of June, or 2.6 months of import cover at the end of December 2023, driven mainly by increased debt service payments. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the Leone has been stable, relatively stable since the second half of 2023, and appreciated by 1.2% between January to September 2024. The relative stability of the exchange rate reflects improvements in the trade balance, decline in inflation, and tight monetary policy stance of the Bank of Sierra Leone. The Leone will continue to be stable on account of expected disbursements of budgetary support, balance of payment, and project support from development partners, as well as ongoing support and efforts to enforce the repatriation of export receipts. The stock of our external debt stood at 1.9 billion, and domestic debt 24.5 billion, about 1 billion, respectively, at the end of June 2024. Budgetary performance in 2024. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, total domestic revenue collected during January to June 2024 amounted to 7.5 billion, 4.5% of GDP, exceeding the target by 386.4 million. Of this amount, income tax amounted to 2.7 billion, goods and services tax 1.2 billion, customs and excise duties 1.7 billion, and mining royalties and licenses amounted to 567 million. The improved performance in revenue collection is attributed to the dividend payment, continued implementation of the Finance Act 2023 and 2024, and robust implementation of revenue administration measures, including strengthening compliance. Domestic revenue are projected to amount to 14.7 billion, 8.9% of GDP in 2024. The grants received from development partners amounted to 1.3 billion, comprising wholly project grants. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, total expenditure and net lending for the first half of 2024 amounted to 11.8 billion, 7.2% of GDP, compared to the original budget of 11.3 billion new loans. Recurrent expenditure amounted to 8.9 billion, 5.4% of GDP, falling below the end June targets amount of by 379 million new leones, despite the overruns in subsidies and transfer. The overspending on subsidies and transfers was driven mainly by higher than budgeted transfers to ETSA to facilitate payment of arrears to IPPs, independent power providers. Wages and salaries and interest payments were lower than their respective targeted amounts. Capital expenditures and net lending for the first half of 2024 amounted to 2.9 billion, 1.8% of GDP, which was above the target amount by 141 million new loans due to higher than projected or expected disbursement of project loans and grants. Domestic funded capital expenditures amounted to 1.1 billion, which is 0.6% of GDP, about 337 million below the targeted amount. Total expenditure and net lending are projected to amount to 26.6 billion new loans, which is 16% of GDP for the whole year of 2024. The overall budget deficit, including grants, narrowed to 1.8% of GDP in the first half of 2024 and was broadly on target. The primary balance deficit is estimated at 0.3% of GDP, and the deficit was financed mainly by borrowing from the domestic banking system. The medium-term prospects and risks. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the Sierra Leone economy is projected to remain resilient in the medium term. Growth is projected to reach 4.5% in 2025, an average 4.7% in 2026 and 2027, driven primarily by strong activities in agriculture and mining and supported by stable economic environment.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, it's past 12. I move that SO 5 to be suspended for the business of the House to continue.
Any seconder?
I so second.
All those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Proceed.